Heidi's so dynamic, isn't she, when she speaks? And I tend to be a little bit scientific, unfortunately. But I must admit, if I can just digress for a moment, I was, being a scientist, I prefer to be in a laboratory with my bacteria, viruses and so forth, very happy relating to them. I met Heidi, who is just totally relationship, right? And I'm totally process orientated. And it's amazing how over the years, the two things that attracted us, they could easily have sent us going that direction as well. But God has just melded us together. And now Heidi's saying, well, Bruce, you're a bit too relational now. And I'm going, Heidi, why are you looking at that problem as a process now? And it's been a really good melding. And I look at that as the Holy Spirit. It just wants to meld us in with the Holy Spirit and just take over our temple and just say, hey, I just want to dwell with you and just give you all the fruit of the Spirit that I have and just give that power to you. And the wedding story is, I've looked at it from an analytical point of view today, okay? But I see the relationship components. So I'll try and meld those two as well. So bear with me, but the analytical component, let me say, has just some brilliant things in it. So if we turn to John 2, we will come to the wedding feast. And as Heidi's already articulated, it's the first known miracle that Christ performed. And it's interesting. When we were going through this, I saw, and the third day, and that was it. I got stuck there because my analytical mind was saying, third day. Okay, why is that written in there? Why does it just say, and there was a wedding, and Jesus was invited? But it says, and the third day. So what's happened on the third day in the Bible? The obvious one, Jesus' resurrection, wasn't it? It was on the third day. What happened in the third day of creation? It was new life, wasn't it? It was all the plants and so forth were springing up, weren't they? What about Jesus said in 3 days the temple would be destroyed and rebuilt? What about Joseph, who was released from prison on the third day? His brothers. And I've just got a long list of things that have happened. God descends down to Mount Sinai and gave what? On the third day. The Ten Commandments. Joshua's spies returned from the land on the third day. Who was expelled from the belly of a whale? Oh, a fish. Jonah, on the third day. And one of the most significant ones, for me, was Esther, after fasting 3 days, puts on the royal apparel, enters the king's palace to thwart the death plot against the Jews. Right? So I haven't even got into the wedding. I just got stuck on that third day. But you can see the symbolism, can't you? That is there for a reason. It's saying, this is about liberation. So this is about freedom. This is about no longer under a death plot. You've got freedom. And then it goes, we continue. There was a marriage in Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. So she had an invite to this wedding, and it was in Cana. Both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus said unto him, They have no wine. And Jesus said unto her, Woman, what would I do with what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. And it's like, that's a strange thing to say, isn't it? For us, he's saying, hey, mine hour has not yet come. And you know what? Refer back to the third day. Because his hour had not come, that he was about to sacrifice his life for all people. And more importantly, to remember the third day that he was going to be raised from death. So he continues, because I'll connect that part of the story about mine hour is not yet come to the next parable, which is about the woman at the well, because these are inextricably connected. And his mother said unto the servants, like, she wasn't going to just say, all right, She had that relationship with Jesus, her son, and said, whatever he says, you do. In other words, Jesus, you're going to do something, but so whatever he says, just let him, just do whatever he says. And there were 6 water pots of stone, and the manner of the purifying the Jews. So it was just like the pots were there, and they were to just wash their hands and clean them before they had their meals, and containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. So analytical mind switches in. Why did he say 6 pots? What's the reason? Why just say there were pots? But no, he says there were 6 pots. And do you know 6 is in the Bible? It generally represents the weakness of man. Okay? So here we have these 6 pots, and he says, go and fill the 6 pots. So he says, fill the water pots with water. And we know they filled them to the brim. Now it's interesting that the servants did what he said, and maybe because they were servants, but they also went, all right, let's fill it to the brim. Because if he's going to try and do something funny with this, hey, we'll know, because it'll spill out over the water. It'll spill out, and we'll say, oh yeah, look, he added something to that water to make it turn into wine. He had something up his sleeve, or he's a conjurer or something like that. But no, so they fill them right up to the brim. And I think that water as well represents us, the Holy Spirit coming in to us, filling us to the brim, right? But even if the Holy Spirit could come right, before Christ's death and fill people to the brim, that we still needed the blood of Christ to die. Okay? So you can see that he's building up to this momentous occasion. And he says, now draw out and bear unto the governor of the feast. And the ruler of the feast had tasted the water, and it was made to wine, and knew not whence it was. But the servants who drew the water knew, which is interesting, isn't it? The governor of the feast called the bridegroom and said unto him, every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, and when the men have well drunk, then they bring out which is worse. But thou hast kept the good wine until now. Now, my analytical mind switches on. Why? Why is this so? Why did this man say, all right, here's the best wine has come now, and yet usually you put the best wine first? I immediately thought of the sanctuary services. I know this seems a bit odd, but I thought, well, all the sacrifices in the world that went on in that sanctuary could not take away the whole world's sin. So Jesus left the best sacrifice till last and gives it to us. And so he not only fills us to the brim, he also then changes that water into the most beautiful wine ever. And you can see that what was in that old covenant, this new covenant was so much stronger. And isn't it interesting that, the weakness of man needed the seventh pot to fill those 6 pots. So it was Jesus' divinity and his godliness that actually filled those people, and he was the 7th pot really in this story, which is divine perfection. Okay, we see there's there's a number of other things that occur in that about faith and so forth, and you can read into and analyze that particular event. So then we come across to the woman in Samaria, which is in John chapter 4. And these two are linked. Actually, even the event after that wedding, we saw Jesus, and I'm just digressing a little bit, but we see Jesus go into the temple. That was the next thing that was recorded in John. And what did he do? He went in there and pulled all the money, threw out all the things that were the wrong things to do. And you can see that the wedding in Cana is about the relationship. He wants us in this really, strong relationship. And the wedding is a symbolic of that. The bride and the bridegroom coming together. And he calls us, the church. And who is the church? I heard it exclaimed the other day at Big Camp, we are the church. Individuals, we are the church. And the next thing he talks about is going into the temple and routing out all the things in the church that were wrong. And you know what? When you come into a relationship with God, and the Holy Spirit fills your life and you understand the sacrifice of God, and you've given your heart, mind and soul and everything to Him, He comes into our temple and roots out all those things that prevents Him dwelling in your temple. And He will do that. And it's just there's a beautiful natural progression in John. And we come to the woman at the well. Okay? We know that story reasonably well, but there's certain parts of it that we'll just go through. And it's in John chapter 4. And John chapter 4, and they came to their he's instructed the disciples to go into the city, get some food and so forth. And it was near Jacob's well. And, it's interesting, the Samaritans, they're sort of an off-break from the Jews. And they went as what the Jews think they went astray. They were the Jeroboamites, And there was this really bad blood between them. And there cometh a woman. Oh, here, let's go back. Verse number 6. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, there being wearied in his journey, sat on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. Okay? What does 6 represent in the Bible? The weakness of man. Okay? So there cometh a woman, Samaria, to draw water. And Jesus said unto her, Give me to drink. And in verse 9, then said the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest of me, which I am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews had no dealings with the Samaritans. Jesus said, I knowest... sorry, my eyes are... Maybe I need my glasses, or sunglasses. If thou knowest the gift of God, for who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, that thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given them living water. Again, you go back to the Cana, and you see the water. No, I've been... All right, thanks, Phil. The woman said unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep, from whence thou hast thou the living water. And thou art greater than the father art thou greater than the father Jacob, which gave us this well, and drank there for himself and his children and his cattle? And Jesus said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, but whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give shall never thirst. But the water I shall give to him shall be in him, and a well of water springing up into everlasting life. And again, we look back at Cana, it's about that water and understanding that sacrifice. He can turn, when that water is turned into the greatest wine. And the woman said unto him, Sir, give me this water that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. And why was she coming there at the 6th hour of the day, which is around midday, in the heat of the sun? Because she was hiding, wasn't she? She didn't come out in the morning or the evening with everyone else. She came out on her own. And Jesus gets to this now. The woman answered and said, Jesus said, Go call thy husband and come hither. And the woman answered and said, I have no husband. And Jesus said unto her, Thou hast said well, I have no husband. For thou hast had 5 husbands. Okay? And in whom thou hast is not thy husband, and thou hast said truly. So she had 5 husbands in the past, and now she's living with someone. I thought, why the numbers? Okay? Now, this is just beautiful. 5 in the Bible is grace. Okay? So she had been searching for grace in other relationships. 5 other relationships. And, they were legitimate relationships. It wasn't, she was, some people say she was a whore. She was actually married to them. She had, and here you have, she's searching, I see, as searching for grace in those relationships. And now she's just going, I can't find that. Now I'm going, my 6th relationship, which is the weakness of man, I'm into a different relationship. See if I can find something out of that. And who comes along? The 7th man. And he completely fills her with not only grace, but also, the water that springs up into everlasting life. Because he said, this is what you need, and I am the Messiah. And she realized that. And she said, I perceive that you are a prophet, and fathers worshipped in this mountain. And he said, yes, in that Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus said unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh. Okay? When he's told his mother, mine hour is not yet come. So he's building, isn't he? Neither this mountain nor yet Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship, ye know, not what? Ye know, oh boy. We know that what we worship for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in the Spirit and in the truth. And the Father seeketh such to worship him. And goes on, God is the Spirit, they must worship him in spirit and in truth. To me, these two events epitomise relationships. God is all about relationships, and it's a pity when, like, we look at the Ten Commandments, and we can look at that and think, what sort of relationship does God want with us? But if we look at those Ten Commandments and how Jesus put that context, he wants, heart, mind, and soul. And I just want to spend time with you, and then you'll relate to others like I'm relating to you. And it goes with our children as well. If we give our heart, mind, and soul to God and spend time with God, our relationship to others, our children, they will see God in us. And it doesn't make us perfect. Only God's perfect. But they see that love. They see that our dedication to God, and that will transform their lives. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say that when the analytical components of looking in the Bible just draw out so much more, don't they? But more importantly, for me, relations has become my number one. From a process person, which I still use. I still am a process person. But the relationship, not only to God, to my wife, to my friends, to my children, and to the earth, is so much more important, and it's become real because of God. So we'll just have it for the internet. People who are watching that, we're just having a break, and that's the conclusion of part 2.